What we have with us today is rather interesting. This is the all-new BYD E6 and it is India's first electric MPV. Now we do love our MPVs, we've seen that with the Innova, we've seen that with the Ertiga. So the idea of an eMPV is rather tempting. However, with the E6, there is a problem right off the bat. It is a commercial vehicle, which means private owners can't really get their hands on one. So what are we doing with it? Well, it also has a 71.7 kilowatt-hour battery that claims a range of over 500 kilometers. And that is the point we are most interested in. But before we get going, don't forget to subscribe to Autocar India and hit that bell icon so you're notified each time we put out content. Now, since the E6 is a commercial MPV, the design takes a backseat on the priority list. That said, it doesn't look drab or outdated from any angle. The front especially is bold thanks to the large halogen headlamps with LED DRLs, and then you have the closed-off grille with hexagonal cavities that give it a modern look. Low down, the bumper is straightforward and nothing about the front is shouty. Over to the side, it is the length of the E6 that will impress. The lengthy wheelbase is also a good indication of the amount of space on the inside, along with a dedicated badge that says space on the C-pillar. The 17-inch wheels also offer a proportionate stance, and the 215/55 tires have a good amount of tire wall to take on our battered roads. What is also a nice touch is the dual-tone scheme of the paint. The blue and black theme is the only other alternative to the white. However, BYD is looking at bringing in a full black on popular demand. The rear is again understated and no nonsense, and nothing on the E6 screams about its green nature. An unapologetic MPV then, but what about the interior? Now step inside the E6 and everything here is very clean and uncluttered. In fact, the dashboard has not a single button. The layout might be simple, but there are bits that make it feel a bit upmarket, like the large glossy panel on the dashboard. Low down on the center console though, you will find a bunch of switches. Now there are various functions here. You have automatic climate control, you have the eco mode, you also have something that will change your region, and of course down you have the drive selector. You also have two cup holders and a tray. This is not a wireless charger, but it is a nice tray to keep your phone. However, it is on the top that all the action is. This 10.1-inch touchscreen is crisp, it's responsive, and it has all the functionality packed into it. The screen is what houses all the settings like the HVAC controls and a lot more. Also, since it is Android based, you can also download various apps, and it also displays things like your battery performance and regen functionality. Now you don't get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto on the E6, but because it is Android based, you can download Google Maps, and that is a big plus. Also, one neat trick that this has is if you rotate it clockwise, it now turns into a portrait style tablet, and that again, I mean, it's only for aesthetic purposes. Nothing really changes apart from the orientation, but that's about it. And for the driver, you have a relatively basic layout. You have analog dials, you get an MID screen that gives you your battery capacity, how much charge is left, how much range you have, and you have a fairly straightforward steering as well. Now this thing also misses out on cruise control, which is why you don't see too many buttons on the steering. The E6 is a commercial vehicle, so in relative terms, it does get some decent features. You get a reversing camera, tire pressure monitor, 4 airbags, ABS with ESC, hill start assist, and also a virtual sound for pedestrian safety under 30 km per hour. It's an MPV, you get a good view out the road, a lot of glass area. These quarter glasses in the A-pillars work well as well. You have big ORVMs, big enough for a perfect visibility. So overall view out is very, very good. The seats again are soft, but I think for my liking, they are a bit too soft. Long distances can be a bit of an issue in these. And the upholstery, even though it feels premium, it doesn't really breathe. So, you end up with a sweaty back. However, a lot of you will be sitting in the back. This is primarily for the chauffeur. So let's just find out what that's like. Now this is where most of you will find yourselves, in the back of the E6, and the experience is, well, it is comfortable because space on offer is very good. You have a good amount of legroom, headroom is good as well. There are these large windows that bring in a lot of light, but the seats cannot be changed, as in you cannot recline them, you cannot bring them forward or backward. This is the set position. And you also miss out on some stuff, you miss out on a center armrest for more comfort, you miss out on sunshades. On a sunny day like this, it is a bit of an issue. And you also have just a single AC vent in the center. Now we would have liked AC vents in the pillars as well, it helps cool the cabin that much faster and it's a bit more practical as well. And in terms of stowage, again, there is not much on offer. The seats don't have pockets in them. You don't really have, place to keep your knickknacks. Of course, you do have some bottle holders, but again, very, very narrow and access is difficult. So it is not the best in terms of experience back here. But in terms of space, it is not a problem at all. And speaking of space, the boot again is humongous. You have 580 liters, so all your luggage and cargo can stay on. Now the thing is that the E6 is a 5-seater MPV. That extra space is for the boot. If there would have been an extra row in the back, there wouldn't have been space for luggage. And given the target audience that the E6 has, I think a boot space is far more usable than an extra row of seats, because in terms of airport transfers, you talk about government officials, you talk about any fleet activity, you have to have a considerable boot space, and this is the only way to get it. The biggest reason that I am in the front seat of the E6 is the range. Now they have some big claims because it is a 71.7 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is, it is one of the biggest batteries right now, and it claims a range of over 500 kilometers. Now that is something I really wanted to check for myself. So we got the car at 100% charge and the range was showing exactly 500 as we started. I reset the trip, it was at 0. Now we've covered around 34 kilometers and the range is 475. So, it is working pretty accurately. What helps it further is the regen as well. It gets two modes of regen, a higher regen and a lower regen. You can see the system at work in the screen right here. And overall, that range anxiety that was the biggest reason of EVs is sort of subdued because of this massive 500 kilometer range, and because the E6 is mainly a fleet car, that big range is of huge importance. As the day went by, we covered over 150 kilometers and the range then was still hovering around the 345 kilometer mark. So the 500 kilometer number is quite realistic. Sure, with a full load, it will drop a bit, but you still get a very strong range, and that will attract fleet owners for their intercity commutes. Now the other thing important on an MPV, on a commercial MPV, is the ride quality, because you're going to be carrying people all the time. Ride comfort is something that is important, and the E6 is not too bad. Bump absorption is good, the suspension setup is nice as well. On our broken patches, the suspension works really well. You don't feel the harshness come into the cabin, and as the speed gains, highway stability is again very, very good. So, you never really feel out of control. You feel nice and stable, nice and planted. And that is a big plus again, because like I said, it is going to be doing intercity commutes, and that highway stability is very important. Now the other big thing on the E6 is the recharging, and the big advantage that BYD have is that the E6 can be charged on DC power for as much as you want, because you don't really have to alternate between AC and DC. It can take DC charging throughout its lifetime.
The 60 kWh DC charger takes just 90 minutes from 0 to 100%, but can also be used to gain a quick top-up of over 200 kilometers in 35 minutes. However, if you have space constraints, there is also the option of a 40 kWh AC wallbox charger that is available on the higher GLX trim of the E6. The GL, which only gets DC compatibility, is a tad cheaper in price, but with the AC wallbox, you do save up on a lot of space and rent in comparison.
However, there is also an option of a 6.6 kilowatt-hour slow charger. Now, again, for fleet owners, it doesn't really make sense to keep their cars overnight on charge. So I think it is the AC and the DC that are going to be used the most. In terms of cost, it takes 76 units to fully charge the 71.7 kilowatt-hour battery pack from 0 to 100%. So the price will be varied depending on the cost of per unit in your city. BYD also are confident about the battery, which is why you get an 8-year and 5 lakh kilometer warranty, which is much higher than some of the luxury EVs out there. Now to sum it up, the BYD E6 does have its strengths. It has that nice roomy cabin, it gets a big boot space for all your luggage and cargo, and it of course gets the 500 kilometer range on a single charge. But it is priced at rupees 29.6 lakh, and that is rather steep. However, BYD say that it is in the long run that you end up saving money. So if you are a fleet owner interested in investing in a fleet of MPVs, then the E6 is something you should consider.